Hi, and welcome to the Comfy Red Couch. My name is Tracy, and I am your host. And I am coming to you from a beautiful sunny day in Toronto, where I was just out on the front lawn talking with my neighbors, and their son was playing on our front lawns, blowing bubbles, kicking a ball, and it was glorious outside. I have a couple of daffodils in my garden. I was just able to go outside, long sleeves, and not have to put on a jacket. So, spring, yay, is finally here, and I think we're supposed to have some really hot weather coming up this week, so I'm looking forward to getting away from old man winter for sure. So this is the Comfy Red Couch podcast. I have my trusty little puppy beside me on the couch. She's trying to slip in behind me as well, but she is here. Tasha, not sure where she's gotten to, but it's always lovely when we have Scout visit us on the Comfy Red Couch. This past week, I did have some people message me to send me some positive thoughts and messaged me to make sure that everything was okay after the van attack in Toronto, and I really appreciated your kind thoughts and words, and that you thought of us, and we are all safe, thankfully, and I really appreciated those thoughtful words and just people reaching out during that time. So thank you for that. You can find me on Ravelry. I am Tracy RR, and on Instagram I am Comfy Red Couch. And this is the Comfy Red Couch podcast, where I talk about knitting, and sometimes I talk about sewing and other crafts. I talk about some tea. I talk about lovely yarns that have come into my life, and just all that lovely crafty goodness that we crafters love to chatter about. So welcome to the podcast. If you are a new viewer, welcome. I hope that you have a chance to just sit down and you've got a cup of tea and your project of choice, and that you've got a few minutes to sit down and chatter away about those lovely crafty things that we crafters like to chatter about. And if you are a returning viewer, you know I always love having you here. Welcome back. I know that you know the drill. You've got your tea or coffee or whatever it is you're drinking. You've got your project of choice, and you are settling on the Comfy Red Couch. You've probably given Scout a lovely little pat, and she really appreciates it because she's feeling a little bit needy today as she cuddles up, right, putting her head on my lap. And we are ready to start talking about all those lovely crafty things that we like to talk about. But before we do that, let us have a little bit of tea. It is tea time, and I am drinking out of one of my Rendale Designs mugs, and this is a mug by Royal Worcester, and this is the fun little mallard duck mug that I bought from Pippin's in Toronto, and it's got a cute little mallard duck inside as well, although I can't see that one as easily as the ones on the outside. Yesterday I did go for a walk in the beaches, and Pippin's is a tea store in the Toronto beaches, and they have just lovely teas and teaware, things like that. And I always love the Rendale Designs. They had some umbrellas there, and they had one with cats and dogs because it's raining cats and dogs, and it was raining yesterday. And then they had one with the mallard duck, and oh, I was so tempted to buy it, but I have an umbrella. Not that I brought it with me yesterday, but I was just so tempted, but I didn't do it. Anyway, today I am drinking a green tea, and this is a tea that was sent to me in one of my lovely Yarny packages, and I'm probably going to butcher the name, so I pulled it up on my iPad, and it is by Betchman and Barton, and the tea is called Les Invités, so the invites or the invitations or Les Invités, and it's in a lovely silk pouch, and so I had two of these, and one is in my cup, and this one is just to share with you. So I had a couple of those that I thought I would try. I did have to look up the tea that I'm drinking on the internet today because I had never heard of Betchman and Barton, or Betchman et Barton. It's from Paris, and Les Invités, this is the page for that type of tea. It is green tea with hints of jasmine, rose, and lychee. And it was really pretty, the tea bags, because it had little tiny flowers inside. So I'm looking forward to trying this green tea. I'm not usually a green tea fan, but it's always nice when you get a nice yarn package and it's got little bits of tea in it, and you can try different teas from all over the world. So I'm excited to try this. So cheers to trying new teas. This week, while I did get up to a lot of knitting, I did not touch my sweater again. So I cast on my sweater 3 weeks ago, and I still have this little tiny amount of stitches on my needle. I think maybe what the problem is I have a fear of knitting sweaters. So I've got to get over it, and I've just got to bite the bullet and just start knitting, because I've got quite a few sweater quantities that I want to knit into sweaters. So maybe next week. But this week was all about socks. And my sock knitting mojo was high, high, high. And when your sock knitting mojo is high, you go with it. So I do have a finished object, and I have 2 half-finished objects to share with you this week. And the first object I'm going to share is my finished object, and it is in my fun little pink hazel bag with my little butterflies on it. And you have seen this project before if you've tuned into the podcast. These are my big puppy socks. These are knit with Knit Picks Felici on a 2.25 needle. I used my Haya sharps for these. And my son has big feet, so I used most of the yarn from each of the Knit Picks balls, and they matched up fairly well. There is just a little bit of difference at the top, but I turned the heel at the same spot, so while one's a little bit taller here, it's not going to make a huge difference. And really, a 16-year-old boy is probably not going to care so much. He does have big feet though, so these didn't quite fit on my large sock blockers. They sort of kept sliding off, so they're not blocked as nicely as I would like them, but they are finished, and Isaac is excited to finally get these. He's been waiting since Monday, because of course I have to share them on the podcast before I give them to my son to put on his feet. A lovely pair of socks that aren't for me. So that is one of the things I got up to this week, as well as dropping yarn. The next project that I'm going to share with you has some similarities to the last one I just shared. 3 in fact, and the first similarity is that it is living in a pink hazel bag. This is one of my pink hazel maxi bags, and I got lots of compliments on it, mainly because a lot of people saw it because I turned it into my purse this week. This bag is a perfect size for wallet, keys, knitting, umbrellas, and all those little things that you need to carry around with you over the week and not also have to carry a purse. So this was my purse from Wednesday on. I went to a conference on Wednesday, so Tuesday night I was trying to figure out what I was going to bring with me, because I did have some transit time, and I also wanted to have something to knit on while people were talking during the keynote speeches. So I grabbed a ball of Knit Picks Felici, so second similarity, and this is the Candy Shop colorway. And the third similarity is that these are also socks that I am making for Isaac. So I will share my half-finished object in a second, but I want to just talk about the yarn a little bit. This is the Candy Shop colorway, and I am using the Wool Barn, one of the minis from the Tropicana mini set that I got a little over a month ago, I guess, and in early March, I guess. So I am knitting a pair of socks with these. And my half-finished object is this huge sock for Isaac, because of course he has big feet. I have decided to do another afterthought heel, and I just love the bright green. It doesn't quite match the green in the yarn, but it's close enough and far enough away from the green in the stripes that I can live with it. Plus, they're not going to be socks for me anyway. They are for Isaac, and he absolutely loves them. He tried it on last night and is excited for me to start knitting the second sock. So let me tell you a little bit about this project. I have named it Keep Out of My Candy Cupboard because the yarn is called The Candy Shop, and one of my tea cupboards, I have a couple, I sometimes put little treats for myself in there, and Isaac has been known to sneak into my tea/treat cupboard and sometimes take my little goodies. So I'm making him these socks as a goodie to remind him to stay out of my candy cupboard because he now has his own candy shop in the form of socks. So that is the half-finished object that I have been working on. I finished the first one last night. I haven't cast on the second sock, but soon. I'm not sure whether I'm going to cast it on in the next couple of days or work on the other project that I'm about to share with you, but it was nice to get something else off the needles, although second sock, got to put it on. And the third project that I am going to share with you has not seen love for a very, very long time, and it has been living in my beautiful little bobbins bag. And this is a bag that Danny and her mother worked on together. So her mother, I think, is Liz, and she did this gorgeous embroidery, beautiful buttons. I love this bag. And then Danny put it all together to create the most perfect bag. And inside my beautiful project bag is my Christmas Eve cast on. And my signatures are currently free. Again, I still need to cast on the second sock, but we're getting there. This is the yarn that I have been using. This is Hedgerow Yarns, and it is Jolly Holly, or Holly Jolly. I think it's Jolly Holly. And this is the color. I'll write it down there what the correct one is. And I have finished my first 'Twas the Night Before Christmas sock. And here are the lovely little trees. And then there is the tiny trunk that goes all the way down to the toe. And as I'm holding this, I am thinking how much smaller my feet are than Isaac's. On Thursday, I was knitting with one of my coworkers at lunch. We knit together every Thursday. And I was wearing my Forever and Always socks for the first time that day. And I took off my boot to show her my socks. And I was working on these as well. And she just was in absolute admiration of the toe design of this sock. And it is the same design as the Forever and Always sock as well. And they are just so comfortable. So they're a little bit of a different structure than the way I normally knit my toes. They require a little bit more thought. I have to write down in the chart when I do the decreases because it's not just a knit one round, decrease one round. But I really do love the toe as well, and they're very, very comfortable. So I am looking forward to getting this pair off the needles and being able to put this in my sock rotation as well. So Operation Sock Drawer is going very, very well this week, and this pair is for me. And I'm not sure which second sock will get cast on first. I'm really wanting to get my Christmas Eve cast on done sooner rather than later. I was working on it on April 24th, which was 4 months past when I actually cast them on, of course, on Christmas Eve, December 24th. So it would be nice to get them done before next Christmas. But there's something very appealing about the thoughtless knitting that happens, the mindless knitting that happens with the Knit Picks Felici and just knitting in the round and round and round. So we will see what happens over the next week, and I guess I'll let you know next week. But for now, that's all I've got to share on my favorite things. If you can believe it, there is not a brown paper packages segment this week. The mailman completely walked on by. He didn't deliver anything to me this week at all. He ignored me, which is okay because for the past few weeks I've been promising you a new segment called Tracys Treasures, and that's what we're going to do today because no brown paper packages. So today I am going to share with you the yarn that started it all. So where it all started. And not my knitting, that's not my knitting, but more my yarn snobbery or my stash acquisition started with this yarn. Before I bought this yarn, I would buy yarn for a project, and oftentimes it was acrylic or it was very cheap yarn, maybe on sale, and I would knit a project and then put it away for a while, pick up knitting again. But this is the yarn that really started my stashing habit. So yes, this is, for me, deep stash, although for some people, their stash may have begun long before mine. This one started in 2014, so it's not terribly old, but this is the yarn that started it all. And I have popped it into my lovely bird legs bags. This is the cutting edge fabric, so it's kind of a fun scissor fabric, the stork scissors and embroidery scissors. And this is by Vicky of Bird Leg Bags. This is her medium nest bag. I'll show you a little bit about the bag after I've shared the yarn with you because it's got some nice features inside, including this gorgeous, gorgeous fabric. But the yarn that started it all and started my love of collecting yarns is this lovely skein of Tilly Thomas Symphony lace in lime. It captured my heart and would not leave my brain. So this is a 63% kid mohair, 10% silk, 10% nylon, 9% wool, and it is 346 yards. Unfortunately, Tilly Thomas does not dye yarn anymore, as far as I know. I think they were just discontinuing when I purchased this, so I had a bit of a FOMO thing happen and bought a few skeins of Tilly Thomas. So this is the Tilly Thomas label, and it's actually a fabric, I think, on top of paper because it's got like a really interesting texture to it. And there are little beads in here. So there's the stellina, and then there's little green beads. And this skein captured my heart when Greg and I visited London in February 2014. So much so that I actually left Loop without it, but I could not get this skein out of my mind. And as soon as I got back, I ended up ordering this because I just couldn't get it out of my mind. And this is the start of stash acquisition for me. Yes, a dangerous, dangerous skein indeed. The reason I didn't buy it when I was in London was because I thought it was too pricey. And yes, it was a very expensive skein of yarn. And but I couldn't get it out of my mind. So I ended up deciding to buy it online, which of course made it even more expensive because I had to pay for shipping. And of course, you're not going to send this over all on its own. It might get lost. It might get lonely. So there had to be some friends that went along with it. So stash enhancement began with this lovely skein of Tilly Thomas. And this is not the only skein of Tilly Thomas that I have in my stash. I also have 2 skeins of this gorgeous blue. And unfortunately, they are different dye lots. So where I had originally hoped to use them together, they're not quite the same. So it does, I'm not sure how I'm going to use these. And even the tags are a little bit different. And this one is called Eternal Diva, is the colorway. This lovely blue. And again, beads, stellina, lots of sparkle. And I was doing a lot of lace shawls at the point when I bought this, and I was just starting to think about doing some beading. This is not, these beads are placed randomly, so it's not a great shawl for something where you want specific beads in specific places, but it is a great yarn to use for a shawl that you just want some little bits and highlights of beads without having to do the beading yourself. And this colorway is called Dusty Purple, and I do believe these are both in the same dye lot, so I would like to use these together. And all together, these three lovelies were my gateway drug into expensive yarns. I had actually bought a gold skein, and I have knit that up into a shawl. I think it's one of the Boo Knits shawls that I've done. I think it's mustard seed, and it's gold. It's got the random beads, and of course I didn't add extra beads. I just used the ones that were in the yarn. So this is the yarn that started it all. And I also said I would share a little bit more about the bag that I had popped it into. And this is my lovely bird legs bags. It's got some pockets in the sides, and Vicky just makes such amazing bags. And this fabric was just too cute. And the gold fabric inside is also quite lovely. So that is some yarn and a bag from my treasure trove. And I'm not sure when I will ever get around to knitting something, because of course the Tilly Thomas with the beads, you need it for something a little bit glitzy. So it's not the yarn that you just grab for because you want to knit a pair of socks. I cannot imagine wearing a pair of socks in these. They would be the most uncomfortable things. So I will need to do something very special. And because it is a light mohair, it's not something that, it'll be a small shawl when you do make it. So 346 yards per skein. I'll figure it out one day, but these are very, very special skeins to me for sure. It's time for some bits and bobs, and this is my segment where I talk about things that aren't necessarily knitting related, so things that are happening in everyday life. And it was another busy week, as it always is. I did have Monday off, and as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, Monday was a very traumatic day for Toronto, and I did receive some Instagram messages on Monday, and I thank everybody for those Instagram messages. And that started the week off on a little bit of a low, to say the least. And but it was nice to sort of be home and also to know where people were. I knew that Greg was writing his exam when it happened, and I knew that the incident was in North Toronto, so I knew Greg was safe. And Isaac, his school is in the east end of Toronto, so I also knew that he was okay. And so even though I was home that day and I knew I was safe, you sort of figure out where people were. So a bit of a hard way to start off a Monday for sure. And are you going to come up with a sock, little one? Come on up. Scout has come up to join us for Bits and Bobs, and she was very, very happy to have me home on Monday. She likes to snuggle up with me while I am knitting away, and as I knit on socks, she snuggled up with me, so that was always nice. Wednesday, I did go to the conference that I talked about earlier, and on the way back from the conference, I had my shots. I do allergy shots every week, and I was walking distance, so I decided to walk, and I walked in a roundabout way and made a detour to a yarn store called Yarns Untangled in Toronto. I had never been there before and decided to check it out. So it's in a place in Toronto called Kensington Market, and looked there. Saw that they had some Hiya sharps in the 9-inch circulars, the 2.25 millimeters. Bought a pair because the night before I had tried putting the socks that I was knitting on at the conference on my 9-inch Addies. Found the Addies just too dull, the tips, especially after getting used to Hiya sharps and my signatures. So I decided not to take my Addies because they would have driven me nuts. And when I saw that they had the Hiyas at Yarns Untangled, I decided to buy a pair. I didn't try them out very long. I tried them out for one round and decided that I was just going to stick with my magic loop for at least the rest of that pair. So they're a pair that I will try a little bit later on, but I guess until then they will go in my needle bin. one can never have too many needles, right? And sometimes you feel like you're in the mood to try just to do without the magic loop, but sometimes the magic loop is just a little bit easier than having to worry about short little needles. Anyway, bought them, didn't love them. I will try again another time. Maybe I'll love them again, but I think you've got to be in the mood. Anyway, Thursday was Nathaniel's first show for The Wizard of Oz, and I walked over from work, picked him up, took Nathaniel and Isaac out for dinner, and then decided to just let Nathaniel play in the schoolyard until the call time, which was 6:20. Dropped him off for his play. I didn't see it that night. I went home. Greg did pick up that night, and we went to see his show on Friday. So they did a fabulous job of The Wizard of Oz. And when they did the tornado, it was great. They had people spinning props around on stage. It was really, really fantastic. But it's always fun watching your child in the school production, especially when they are on the sidelines in the choir, undoing their shirt buttons. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It did get worse, but we won't talk about that. It's a bit traumatic to think about what your child is doing while he's supposed to be singing. Anyway, it was absolutely lovely to see him dressed up as a crow, and he did the little dance as the crow during when Dorothy found the scarecrow, and just adorable, adorable. But one show down, maybe I won't hear the coroner speech for a while. That will be good. Isaac's show is next week. He's doing hair, so looking forward to getting all the shows done. Saturday was a lovely day. Isaac had a full day rehearsal at his school, and I went down to the beaches and met my best friend since I was 7 for brunch and then a lovely walk in the beaches. It was raining, but we still had a lovely time. I had a lovely poached egg breakfast with some hollandaise sauce on top, and then we went to Pippin's, as I talked about in tea time. I didn't buy any tea. We also went to a few other shops, went shoe shopping, and I didn't buy shoes, but my best friend did, and they were really nice boots that she ended up purchasing. They'll be very nice classic boots for her wardrobe. I bought some of those no-show socks because I've got some really nice shoes that I'd like to wear, but I also don't want to get blisters, and unfortunately my lovely hand-knit socks won't go as nicely with them, so I did buy some beige colored no-show socks yesterday, but otherwise I was a very restrained person down in the beaches yesterday, so that was good. After I got home from my rainy but lovely afternoon in the beaches yesterday, I did sit down and I finished the first sock for my candy shop socks that I shared with you. And then last night, I finally did what I've been procrastinating doing for quite some time, and that was the taxes, which are due on Monday. I always leave them till the last minute. I always stress about it. I always tell myself I should do them earlier, but I never do. Happily, we are both getting refunds, both Greg and I, so that's a nice thing, but just, I procrastinate. But I got them done, so happy about that. I do have some paperwork that I have been procrastinating on this weekend that I need to get done for work tomorrow, so I will do that tonight after I edit the podcast, and then I will feel fully, all the procrastinating has been done, work-wise, responsibility-wise. It's awful to say that I sometimes procrastinate on my crafting as well, so I have been procrastinating on my sweater, my Knit Me Baby One More Time, which only has this much. And I've also been procrastinating on my green polka dot dress. I keep trying it on, but I have to still finish the front trim and then figure out how I'm going to finish it. And then the part I really don't like, the hem. I've got to get that done. So yes, I have been procrastinating in my crafting life as well. I need to get over it. I just need to get it done so that I can feel a sense of accomplishment like I did when I finished the taxes last night. So anyway, that's all I think I've got to share on Bits and Bobs this week. And I am looking forward to getting those things that I have been procrastinating out of the way so I can share some lovely things with you next week. Thank you so much for joining me on the Comfy Red Couch this week. I always appreciate the time that you give me, and I hope that you've had a chance to just sit down, relax, refresh, take that necessary time for yourself, and that you've enjoyed working on your project of choice. I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and I hope to see you next week on the Comfy Red Couch. Bye. Sometimes, I think I might just live with Bigfoot. Here's my sock. I hope this kid knows how much I love him.